Mr. Mizell, can you please do the roll call?
Yes, ma'am. Chairman Samuel Rue,
Here.
Vice Chair Michael Packer, I see him here.
The Packer.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you. Secretary Treasurer Richard Taylor. Dr. Abdullah.
Present.
Raymond Crockett.
He would not be here.
Okay. Lafayette Jefferson. And Winston Sanders.
Present.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you for the roll call. We do have a quorum. We'll have the approval of the December 17th minutes 2020. Everybody should have received a copy of those minutes, and I'll entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I motion to approve just one small typo, I believe. I sent a email back on it, just the use of the word on instead of and.
Okay. Is there a second with the correction?
I second the motion.
Okay, thank you. The move and properly second that we approve the minutes with the correction. Any questions or concerns? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Any nays? Okay. Ayes have, therefore the motion is carried. Thank you very much. Is Mr. Taylor present yet? Mr. Taylor? All right, we'll go ahead and come back to the financial report. Just an update for me. Again, Happy New Year to everyone. Welcome. We're looking for an exciting year with the Economic Development Authority. Anxious to get input and move things forward. We have a very good agenda and report from the city today. I will tell you that many of you know Ms. Evco is no longer with the city. And so we'll have Mr. Jeremy Tennant and the rest of the staff. We also have, you should have received the statement of economic interest form that needs to be completed and returned to the clerk by the 28th. So please make note of that. And also we have Mr. Raymond Crockett submitted his resignation today due to some personal issues. So there'll be a vacancy that will be forwarded over to the clerk, and we'll see, they'll go about refilling that position. So that would give us a total of 6 members of the authority. We were authorized to have 7, and 4 is a quorum. Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Taylor. He's not in, he said he was signing in. All right, with that, let's go to new business project tube update. Mr. Jeremy Tennant is going to come and share with us about that project. Mr. Tennant?
Chairman Rue, how are you doing today? Rest of the day?
Fine, sir.
Good, good. Cynthia, please let me know when I can share. How's everybody on the board doing this evening?
We're doing great.
Good.
And you're doing well?
Cannot complain at all.
All right. That's what we want to hear.
Thank you, Cynthia, for sharing, and let me figure out how to share on Zoom. This is my first time. Here we go. Please let me know whether or not you can see my screen.
I can see it.
All right, let's get the ball rolling then. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Just want to give you a good quick update on the project too. This has actually been one of those moving targets, and if you have been following the news today, it continues to move, and I'll fill you in on all those updates as we go along through this report. First off, just to give you a little background, on July 24th of last year, VEDP, which is the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, proposed a financial offer to Project 2 using their Commonwealth Opportunity Fund, which was created by them in 1995 to encourage and stimulate support for development of the economy here. We actually utilize this within one of our districts or in our special zones, which is known as the I-95 Technology Zone. Just to give you a heads up, Project 2 is a mix of 3 separate companies. Those 3 separate companies are Ampac, Flow, and Civica. Ampac Fine Chemicals, excuse me, Flow and Civica. Basically, as you all may know, or if you don't know, Ampac is currently sitting or sited on that property on the I-95 Technology Zone area, right there at the corner, or in the area, if you will, of Normandy and Wagner Roads location, if you will. Flow is working with Civica, with Ampac, to put a 3-headed monster, as I can nicely say it, use some basketball terminology, to basically allow for a large pharmaceutical strategic area within the city of Petersburg. And we'll get to that a little later. Just to kind of give you an idea visually of where this property is located, see Normandy Road, which is the roundabout section between the 2 parcels. And Normandy is, excuse me, and Wagner is to the south. And just to show you the Ampac property as it currently stands within those in the site. Just to give you a little background on Ampac, if there's any questions about Ampac, it's an SK Flumpo company that's based here in the United States. They actually produce APIs, or active pharmaceutical ingredients. They basically have been in existence for 75 years, and they're one part of the engine that is to put together a strategic reserve of sorts on this particular site. The next we have Flow, which is a public benefit corporation, which actually innovates strategic drug reserves. And then you have Civica, which is a nonprofit, which in essence creates generic medicines. And with these 3 together, combine to create Flow, or Project 2. Flow, a little background on Flow. They were granted last year, I want to say summer of last year, $354 million to go up to $812 million, depending on certain performance measures that are met over 10 years to help to build up the drug reserve here in the United States. And just to kind of give you guys a picture of the drug reserve context here in the United States as a whole, only 5% of the raw materials are created here in the United States domestically. 20% of the intermediate materials are created here in the United States, and 60% of completed medicines are done in the United States. That's why this is kind of an interesting scenario, because the end game is to have 100% of all of those ingredients, the key starting materials, the active pharmaceutical ingredients, and the finished product created not just here in the United States, but here within the city of Petersburg. And I kind of touched on key starting materials just in a nutshell for a quick explanation. It's the plant matter or microorganisms and metals that are used to compile the basis for certain drugs. And then you have the active pharmaceutical ingredients as well, which are included to that, which is your your headache medicine. And I kept pronouncing that term, I'm sorry. And also other drugs related to cancer and blood sugar. The strategic reserve, or the SAFER, if you will, is what the whole overall nucleus of this project, and why it's such a great thing for not just the United States, but also Petersburg as well, is because it puts all of that not just in one region of the country, not just in one portion of the state, but all of here within the city of Petersburg. So this is a phenomenal concept of the drug, of the pharmaceutical industry as it comes into play. And the reason why I say this is a moving target, I stated it earlier, is because as of noon this evening, there was a press release that specified that Civica will be coming here to Petersburg, Virginia, and as such, it was under wraps until literally today, but now it's public information that is out there. So that is the third tier of the Project 2 leg, if you will, that will help to hopefully give us a good foundation moving forward. And just to kind of give you guys a status, we are basically in the process right now where we're close to finalizing the performance agreement with Civica. That is actually under review for execution. And we're also finalizing, the memorandum of understanding for the infrastructure and development portion of the site as well. So everything's coming to a head, if you will, which is a good thing, because now we get a chance to see this project develop and flourish within our city. And this is just a quick timeline of events right here, basically showing that this is a project that started early 2020. Last summer, it picked up a little steam where Flo decided to reach out to partners to bring here to the city. Everything has come to a head, and where we've actually have finalization, if you will, where in 2021 of this year, of January, within today, we've actually gotten that last portion of the group. So now everything is going downhill in a good way. I apologize for running through that roughly and quickly, but I just want to make sure that you guys are understanding of where we were at Project 2, especially the great news that came out today. So you understood some of the backstory along with the current story of what has occurred and what is occurring within the city of Petersburg. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Mr. Chairman, this is Richard Taylor. Can I ask Jeremy a question?
Yes, go ahead.
Jeremy, I rode out that way last Saturday, and I noticed a bunch of trucks hauling gravel. So I followed them, and I saw that one of those companies has started construction already, or site preparation. Do you know which one is it? Is that Flo?
Yes.
Okay, looks like they got a lot of site prep to do, but they're moving on. I was glad to see that, and that announcement today, which I saw from the governor's office, that's really encouraging.
Yes.
Thanks for all the hard work.
No, it was a great effort, not just from staff, and also a lot of elected officials as well. So yes.
Very good. Dr. Abdullah, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. I have a question. I was just wondering if we would get any information about if the projects are required to do any type of environmental impact statement. This is a pharmaceutical company, and I'm wondering what they're going to do with their waste, and if it's going to have any impact on Petersburg waterways or land or citizens in any kind of way. I just want to know if we could get that information.
I will make a request for them. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Abdullah.
All right, so you'll be able to get that. Any other question for Jeremy, Mr. Tennant, on this exciting project? Any other questions?
Yes, this is Lafayette. I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so they were talking about the jobs that'll be as a result of this deal coming through. And so I would like to know what type of jobs are they talking about, at what levels, and if we have the people already here that need to be trained, or will these be new citizens coming from outside?
I will give, I guess one of the things we can do is have a follow-up report for the next meeting to have these 2 questions answered. So I will follow back up with them to give you guys some guidance on the next meeting for the month of February with these 2 questions, or the additional ones that come up as well.
Okay. One other question too is, are there any kind of, along the job piece, are they working along with some of the universities of trying to get talent like Virginia State, Richard Bland, and I would say John Tyler also?
I can actually address this one right away because I have been in a meeting with those particular entities. They are working well with those entities to identify students and actually create through the community college, John Tyler, different mechanisms to basically train their staff in order to work on the sequences that they have within the site. So yes, that is definitely happening, which kind of somewhat addresses Mr. Jefferson's question, but I think you want more specifics, and I'll see if I can get those more specifics for you for the next meeting.
That would be great. Any other questions for Jeremy on this project?
Yeah, Jeremy, you just mentioned John Tyler, but what about Virginia State?
I said Virginia State too.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because a lot of our attend John Tyler also. That's why I want to make sure. But
Right.
Virginia State and Richard Bland.
But all the local universities and colleges have been represented whenever there's talks of future employment opportunities. I can definitely attest to that, yes.
Okay. Any other questions on the project two?
Mr. Chairman, this is Richard again. Jeremy, if you would, this is a pet peeve of mine. I've often thought that even when B.I. Kunkel was here, that maybe they could have some sort of an apprentice program at Petersburg High School for the kids that are going there. You might mention that to them and to the superintendent too, because I think it would be great if our kids have some opportunities in the future to get some employment there. Because I think these companies putting enough money into this project, they're going to be here a while.
Okay, gotcha.
Just a suggestion. Thank you.
Never hurts to ask, right?
Right.
Yeah, you're right. The apprenticeship program is a big deal in Europe. These kids in their junior and senior years, they actually work for the companies. They graduate. The companies then send them to higher education, whether it's 2 years or 4 years, and then they come back and they have a job that pays really good money.
Yes.
And I think that's something we ought to pursue.
And plus they have the trained skill set that's not trying to figure out what they're trying to do. They're actually going through with the queue. So yes, I'm very familiar with the program. Yes.
Okay. Any other questions on project two? And we'll look for the updates, Jeremy, at the February meeting. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, let's go to the technology zone update.
Can you guys still see my screen?
I can see it.
Perfect. Okay, this kind of runs into, as I mentioned earlier, ironically, project two actually rests in the technology zone, the I-95 technology zone. As it stands, the city of Petersburg has one technology zone, which is, of course, at that Normandy-Wagner area. As Mr. Richards said, there is some work being done out there, so he's, well, at least one person I know is familiar with the site. All right. Ironically, the technology zone was written back in was written back in 2003, if I recall. That's on the next slide, so I jump over. But just wanted to kind of update that technology zone because there was some verbiage in there that was a little bit gray, if you will, and we wanted to kind of finite that gray and make it a little more black and white so it was understandable to staff and also those that were coming to interact with the technology within the technology zone. So some of the things that were looked into, we admitted were that of the definitions, the incentives, clarifying the incentives, some aspects of the procedure, and also language in the compliance and confidentiality. And I'll get into the breakdown of what was actually nuanced, if you will, later on in the presentation. We'll just give you an overview there. All right. So basically, just a little background on the technology zone. It was authorized by the state in 2002 of April. The city of Petersburg approved it back in July 2003. It's been amended a couple of times, ironically twice in the past few months. Last, of course, being November 8th when this was done. But before that, on October the 6th, I can address that because I actually was affiliated with that, where we subdivided the lots where we saw earlier the difference between the Ampac site and the Utah site, where it's divided by Normandy. Well, the Normandy site is the area where Flow and Civica will be. The southern site is where Ampac is. So initially they were all one large parcel that was subdivided to basically identify that as such. All right, and just to give you an idea, the purpose of the technology zone is to allow and encourage certain classes of high technology businesses, activities, such in this case, pharmaceutical research and development, that have special economic significance in the city due to the nature of their technology and potential high growth employment and capital investment, which is why this is all encompassing of that technology zone with the particular project tube site. The incentive is that per the approved ordinances is equal to 100% of the machinery and tax, which is paid through 5 years. But it should also be noted that it can be extended up to 10 years. Up to 10 years, there is a machinery and tool tax, which we'll get to further later on in the presentation to kind of give you that clear breakdown of that process. And speaking of the process, applications are distributed to, certified businesses submit an application to the city each calendar year. And those businesses must apply for the technology zone annually each time as they're part of the program within those 5 years or if they wish to extend it to the 10 years, they have to submit an application for up to the 10 years, and it's done every year. And excuse me, one other thing I like to add that I don't have on here, excuse me, is that it's submitted to the city, but it goes to the Commissioner of Revenue because that is the where the application is set. All right, and I guess I should have waited to the next slide to show you the fact that this is how the property looks. And if you recall from the previous slide where it says parcel number 0630100800, that's the Utah site, which is going to consist of the Flow and Civica properties. And then at the bottom where Impact currently stands, that is 0630100001. And Richard, to answer your question from previously, that the trucks that you saw were more than likely coming from the Utah site that was on the north, to answer your question from previous. All right, a little breakdown of the machinery and tools tax. It's a tax that's based on production of used machinery and tools within manufacturing. Currently, the city, Petersburg, has a rate of $3.80 per $100 of assessed value. And basically, there has been some money put up by both the state and the city. A lot of that, the state put up 5.7 million, which is giving the credit to the city. The city is paying 2.9 that is generating from the machinery, from the machinery and tools tax as it currently stands. And just to kind of give you a little heads up on AMPAC, in case anybody was interested, they came, their grant period initiated in March of 2018. Speaking of the 5-year period that we have, that means that it ends in March of 2023, which is 2 years from now. And they have an opportunity to extend that if they go to the application process. All right, we talked about the certain amendments that were done and at the last council meeting. Just give you guys an update on the technology zone incentives. It clarifies the process flow via the grant administrator and defines the eligible grant period for the capital investment grant, which was a little bit ambiguous previously. Excuse me. The amendment that involves the procedures, it identifies the grant administrator as the entity to certify the application prior to the routing of the Commissioner of Revenue, which was mentioned earlier, and also clarified the amount of credit that is determined and the duration of the grant period. As it relates to compliance, the amendment that was done there was it clarified the duration of the grant awards and specified the grant term. And as it relates to confidentiality, the language there, it clarified the grant administrator. And it also basically talked about the privacy concerns and rights that are to be protected, which is just the legalese that was needed on the update for state statutes. Just to kind of summarize everything, the technology zone has been in existence here in the city of Petersburg since 2003. As last count, there were 2 previous companies there prior to the current one, AMPAC, that utilize the technology zone. And there, as you can see, are rocking and rolling. As mentioned earlier, there's a lot of investment in place in there now, which is a good thing. So that's where that currently stands. And that's all I have there. Do you have any questions or concerns, any comments regarding the technology zone?
Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, this is Richard. I do have one.
Okay.
Jeremy, when the abated machinery and tool tax end and they have to start paying, is there a figure that would be that the city will start collecting?
You're talking about after the
5-year period or the 10-year period?
Give me 1 second.
And is it fully abated or they just pay a lower percentage of the machinery and tool tax?
There's a percentage of that which is utilized.
Okay, you don't have a figure on that, do you, yet? And if you don't, that's fine, because I don't know if they've even presented you the information of how much machinery they're gonna have.
Yes, I do not have that. I was just trying to make sure, because if I could answer your questions at the day of meeting, I love doing that, but I don't have that.
Yes.
Jeremy?
Yes.
I have those numbers, if it's okay to share.
Please share. Thank you.
So for the Civica project, we should be expecting to get roughly about $1.1 million per year in taxable revenue. And that's without the machinery and tools tax.
That's the real estate tax?
Yes, sir. And so once that incentive goes away, over a 5-year period, it might be roughly about 2.9 million when the exemption ends for the Civica project. And then for AMPAC, who's currently receiving the incentive, we should stand to get about $779,000 in machinery and tools tax once that ends as well.
And how about the nonprofit? Where did they end up?
Civica is the nonprofit. Unfortunately, what I don't have is Flo's numbers. That's the one company I don't have. So
Okay, so there'll be some significant revenue that we'll have, and I think that's great.
and we'll also be getting in utility fees as well.
Very good. Any other questions for Jeremy on the technology zone update?
Is it possible for us to get a copy of this PowerPoint presentation?
Good question. You can make that available to us through electronic or paper copy?
Yes, what I can do is I can have Cynthia email it to you, so we have everything. Yes.
That satisfied everybody? That'll work, electronic copy?
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other questions on the technology zone update?
Mr. Chair, this is Winston Sanders. Just thinking about the pharmaceutical and what's coming, do we know the impact on the Petersburg utilities as far as the water and sewer impact?
Yes, that has been something that has been very, very in-depthly discussed. And as it stands right now, with what they're proposing with the use, it does meet the capacity threshold as it currently stands.
But is this part of the loop that goes to Southside Regional and Boar's Head?
This is for the sewer, we're talking about the Poor Creek.
Okay, the sewer. I'm more concerned about the water supply.
In the water supply, I do not know the loop for the water. I do, because the only loop that we were referring to was the capacity that's going along Normandy.
Mr. Chairman, this is Richard again.
Yes, Richard.
To answer my question, I think part of the package now is to run new lines and to build a new water tower out that way. Is that not correct?
That is correct as well. Some of the money that is utilized for the BDP is going into utilities, which I was saying earlier about the capacity, the use being able to meet the capacity.
Right. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
This is Mike Packer. Just want to point out that the city's decision not to sell its water and sewer system allows it then to qualify for help that it's getting from the state and being able to make the improvements necessary to provide the sewer and water for these new plants. Whether or not that would have been something the city could do if the water and sewer companies had been privatized, would have been questionable. So many of us felt strongly that the city should maintain its ownership in the water and sewer system. And I think this is certainly a positive result of that decision. Compliment the city in that regard.
Thank you, Mr. Packer, for that reminder. We remember working on that project. Thank you very much. Any other questions on the technology zone?
I just got a comment. I just want to echo the concerns of Dr. Abdullah. Since we've been sitting here, I've been doing a little research on the environmental impact of drug production in the United States. And this is something we have to look at and consider very, very closely. That's it.
Thank you for that.
I second that. This is Dr. Abdullah.
Good comment, right, okay.
We
So
we want to avoid an environmental injustice situation. So
Yeah, absolutely. So Jeremy, if you know anything updates on that we can get, would be
Yes,
appreciated. You know, those are good comments, and certainly want to be careful with that.
it is definitely on my list, inquiring. Yes.
Okay. We'll look for a follow-up on that. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Richard.
this is Richard. Jeremy, now I heard this through the grapevine, but I understand that the state is authorized now to spend what it's going to take to upgrade our sewage treatment plant, which I hope is true, because then it goes to exactly what Lafayette and Mrs. Abdullah are talking about. And I have the same concerns, and funny that it is that y'all raised that question. I just started a new book that I'm reading, and it's all about a community that got poisoned by a chemical producing company. And I have to support what both of y'all are saying, but I have a feeling this upgrade in the sewage treatment plant is going to take care of it.
Okay. All right. Very good.
Jeremy, you might want to check with DEQ, because I understand they're putting the money up to get it done.
So
Somewhere.
Mr. Taylor, Mr. Lyons here, Deputy City Manager. I apologize for being late. I'm just coming from the South Central Water Wastewater Treatment Authority meeting, where we are endeavoring to get roughly asking for up to $125 million, of which about 90% of it would be from state money, which means the other surrounding municipalities would have to bond or finance about $36 million to do all of the nutrient, what we call nutrient upgrades to South Central Water Treatment Plant. We hope to have some more updated news in the next 60 days where we are in that process.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lyons. Any other questions? Okay, before we go to the old business, we're going to fall back to the financial report and ask Mr. Taylor if he would give us an update on that, where we are with the financial report, please.
I'm happy to. Yes, sir. There's been no activity since the last report. Current balance is $105,996.52. And I'd like the members to know that I've been in touch with the bank where we have our money, and I think I can find another type of checking account we can put it in that will draw more interest than we're currently drawing. Only thing that it requires will be for some administrative help, and I'll talk to Jeremy about that. We'll need a letter for the chairman to sign and authorize that we move the funds to a more favorable account.
And did we address this in the past about the letter? Was this approved?
It was, and it kind of fell through the floorboards, okay? And after I talked to you this morning, I made my phone call, and that account is still available. We just need to get a new letter.
Okay.
Thanks, Mr. Root.
Thank you. Yes, questions? Someone have a question? I'll entertain a motion to approve the financial report in Mr. Taylor's report.
So moved. So moved.
Second. Any other discussion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Nays have the same right. Ayes have it, the motion is carried. Thank you for that.
Mr. Chairman, one thing on that vote right there, I think whoever's keeping the minutes needs to know exactly who it was that made the motion and seconded it.
Yes.
I'm chairman of another committee somewhere, and I got slammed the other day because in the minutes there were no names of who made it and who seconded it.
Thank you. Did you get that, Ms. Boone? Who made the motion? And Mr. Packer? And who second? We're good?
Yes, sir. I got Mr. Packer and made the motion, and Mr. Saunders made the second.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for those. Okay, now we move into old business. We're going to have an update on the Hotel Petersburg by Dr. Cuthbert.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
This is Mike Packer. Before Dr. Cuthbert starts, I'd like to say that there's been some concern about my participation in this project, trying to help the city EDA and the city administration along with the project. And there's a concern that my enthusiasm might have caused me now not to be as objective as I need to be as an EDA member. I should state that I've never represented the developers in any way, do not provide legal advice to them. I was trying to help the EDA and the administrative folks who are helping the EDA. But all of that being said, it's a very important project, and I'm really hoping that it's going to be successful. And for that reason, I'm going to abstain from voting on any issues as it relates to the hotel project. And I'm also going to not participate in the debate or discussion about it. I think that's the best thing for me to do in order for the project to have its best chance of proceeding forward successfully. And I thank you for the opportunity for letting me make that statement.
Thank you, Mr. Packer. Okay, Dr. Cuthbert, if you would go ahead with the update on the Hotel Petersburg.
Sorry, it sounds like he's muted. Or
You might be muted. We don't hear you. You are muted. We still can't hear you. We can't hear you, Dr. Cuthbert. We're not able to hear you, sir. Now you look like you're muted. We can't hear.
And now can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, as I was saying, I appreciate the interest and support that all of you have shown. I think we all share the idea that this is an important project and it would be a great benefit if we can pull it together. Since the last meeting, we've been going over numbers with the city administration relating to the incentives with the tax rebate, and we're still mulling those figures over. My read on the city's reaction is that they're supportive, interested, and want to continue the dialogue. And I hope that we will be able to have something more final from the city shortly. And then I hope that we'll be able to get the endorsement of the EDA as well. In the meantime, assuming that these other things move along, we'll need to find some way of funding a revolving loan fund for the EDA. And in an August meeting, by resolution, the EDA approved application for grants, but city economic development department has been extremely busy. I'm sure a lot of it has been with what you were just talking about earlier today. And so none of that has happened. And so what I would like to do is get the go-ahead from the EDA tonight to have a paid consultant that I pay to handle the paperwork for the EDA and go ahead and make the grant applications. That's going to take a little while. And then in the meantime, maybe we can finish going over numbers with the city and come back. I hope we'd be able to do that before the next scheduled EDA meeting. I don't know how easy or difficult it is to have a called meeting, but that's down the road.
Dr. Cuthbert,
So
can you kind of repeat, Dr. Cuthbert, sorry about, could you sort of
Mr.
repeat
Rue,
the request?
if you could give me any indication of whether it would be all right with the EDA for me to have Jeff Sadler proceed with the grant applications, that would be a great help.
Dr. Cuthbert, I need for you to repeat what you said. I missed that part of that. The request. You mind repeating that, please? Dr. Cuthbert? You're muted again. We still can't hear you. Dr. Cuthbert, we can't hear. Can anybody? I can't hear.
Hear either.
I can't hear him either, so.
We can't hear Dr. Cuthbert.
And how about, can you hear me now?
Yes,
We can hear now. Would you go back over
No,
that?
you still can't hear me now?
We can hear now. Just repeat the
And
request.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we
Oh,
can.
he can't hear.
Yeah, we can hear well now. Sorry about that. Okay, just kind of go back to the last part of what the request was and kind of where you are.
Maybe I can telephone.
We can hear now.
He can't hear us.
You can't. Can you hear me?
Still no hearing?
I can hear you. Can everybody else hear?
Yes.
I can hear him.
All right, go ahead.
When he's speaking, his speaker is off.
His microphone is off.
Yeah, your microphone is off.
We can call in, I believe.
Well, I keep clicking.
We can't.
I love modern technology.
Okay, we still can't hear.
I can't read it. No, I can't read it.
That does work, Dr. Cupper. We need to hear you.
Now his microphone is off.
Yeah, it's not.
Mr. Cuthbert, what we're going to try to do is have Cynthia email you or send on to you on chat on here, the number for you to call on. And once you call on that number, just talk to us via telephone. That should suffice it.
Okay, so we'll try to do that.
Hey, Cynthia, let us know which way you're going to send it to them, either via chat or via email, so we can, Mr. Cuthbert can know which one to look for, please.
I'm about to send it to him on the chat.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. And Mr. Cuthbert, the chat icon at the bottom, at the center of your screen, bottom center of your screen, you're going to see like a number 1 on top of that. Click on that and just dial in the numbers, and we'll be able to hear you.
Does he have the number?
Were we able to send the number to Mr. Culper? Mr. Culper, did you get the number in your chat? Yes, I think I hear a voice. That's him.
All right, we can hear you.
But Mr. Culper, please mute your computer, please.
I can't hear on your telephone either. What I'm doing is trying to call and ask where the number is that you want me to dial into. I don't know what you want me to do. Apparently.
We can hear you, sir, but we just need you to mute your computer, please.
Admittedly, I'm a little deaf, but I don't know what you just said.
We can hear you. Can everybody else hear Dr. Culper?
Yeah, we can hear. It's not real clear, but we can hear. Can you hear us, Dr. Cuthbert?
That's better. All right, so you can hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, well, I guess, first of all, I need to apologize to all of you. I don't know what my technological problem was here. But in any case, we can hear each other now. At our last meeting, we talked about a possible incentive to use in tandem with a revolving loan fund for the EDA. And we've been going over numbers with the city since then, and the city seems to be receptive and interested in, I think all of us think we can work something out, but we're still mulling over those numbers with the city. I hope that we can do that soon, come back to the EDA, and the EDA can give its blessing for what we proposed. But in the meantime, if we could proceed with applications for grants on behalf of the EDA to fund a revolving loan fund for the EDA, that would be real helpful. In the August meeting, the EDA authorized by resolution submission of grant applications, but the city economic development department has been so busy, I suppose largely with what you were talking about earlier today, that none of that's happened in 4 months or so. And so what I would propose is that I pay a consultant, Jeff Sadler, to prepare the paperwork for the EDA and submit the grant applications. And that would have the advantage of it would not require EDA personnel's time, and it would not burden the city. I think they're already stretched a little thin with all they're trying to do. So if Mr. Rue, if I could get an indication from you that it would be all right to proceed, that's what I would like to do.
And you know, we are interested in this project, but I probably need an opinion from Mr. Williams on how this should proceed, the process for that. Mr. Williams, are you there?
Yes, sir. I think it's a great idea. I think Mr. Sadler is someone that the city has worked with on other matters in his previous line of work, and he certainly would do a great job in helping to identify grants. My suggestion would be to treat it much in the same way that the city council treats it, and that is the applications are subject to review and approval by the EDA based on the grants themselves. If they want to identify, prepare, and present them when they're ready for the EDA's endorsement, then I think that's a great idea, because Mr. Sadler is very adept in that field.
So would you want to review the applications before he submits it, or just reserve the right to approve them or disapprove them after they're submitted?
Yeah, I think if you want the EDA's endorsement of the grants, I would like for us to be able to review it, or the EDA to be able to review it at the time of application. But if you're just submitting pending the EDA's endorsement, then you can submit them, and then the EDA would vote to approve or disapprove.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So Jeff could prepare the applications and submit them then.
Right, as long as the EDA's endorsement is contingent on a favorable vote from the EDA, and then that's fine.
Okay. All right.
So,
All right. Well, that would be great. Well, then I will speak with Jeff and ask him to proceed.
Hold on, time out. Don't we need a
we got
motion
to back
for
up a little bit.
this? Do we need a motion for this?
Oh, no, we're not ready to do it. Yeah, I want clarification on this. Williams, are you saying that they could submit an application for a grant and then bring it to the EDA for approval after that? I mean, I just want to clarify, how does that work?
Yeah, if they require EDA endorsement, then the EDA's vote would be required. I don't know what the details of the grants that they're applying for will require. And so if you want to have Jeff Sadler call me with the details of the grant, I can certainly talk to them about it. But we can't prevent a developer from submitting a grant saying, I'm submitting this grant contingent upon the EDA's vote and endorsement of the grant itself once we present the details. But yes, I think the EDA has to vote before it actually endorses the grant, if that makes sense.
All right, so I know Mr. Jefferson had a question, so go right ahead.
Well, I didn't have a question. I just wondered if we had to vote on it as a board of directors. But I will say openly that until we get some guarantees in place for the jobs of the citizens in Petersburg, that I'm going to vote no.
Yeah.
And as far as giving up leverage by letting him proceed, I disagree with that also.
Okay. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman, I agree. I was going to say that we raised some questions the last meeting, and I don't think they have been addressed. And so I'm not in a position to vote in favor of this project moving forward with any type of endorsement from the EDA.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, what I would suggest, Mr. Cuthbert, is if you could have Mr. Sadler contact me and perhaps provide the details of the grant he intends to submit, and then that could be brought to the EDA to present, so they'll know exactly what you're talking about. Right now, I think you're just saying that you want to have a consultant retained to identify the grants, and we don't know what the grants are at this time. So I don't know. I think that it's kind of shooting in the dark at this point. But
all right. Well, I think you pointed us in the right direction. I think it sounds like the first step is to get Jeff to give you a call.
yeah, that's what I'd suggest.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is Richard. Dr. Cuthbert, after we had our last meeting, I had a conversation with you, and I thought you were going to present us with some figures for employment for this project. And I haven't heard it tonight, so I'm just curious if you were able to get that information or to contact Virginia State about their hospitality classes over there.
I don't know whom to contact at Virginia State, so the answer is I haven't followed up on that. As for the numbers, I'm not sure which numbers you're referring to. I think the last meeting in a PowerPoint display, we gave a pretty thorough breakdown of the real estate tax, the business personal property tax, the state sales tax, the state sales tax to the schools, the lodging tax, the meals and beverage tax, the business license tax, the utility tax, the stormwater tax, and gave totals based on projections for the city for years 1 through 10 and then the total of that. So I'm not sure what further figures you want, but I'll certainly try to provide them.
Any other comments on this?
I'd like to make a comment. Norma Williams with Array Business Technology. I'm hearing and a bit concerned when I hear, well, there is a particular consulting company or individual that has done good work in the past, and we'd like to hire them on as a consultant. In economic development, anything that we do with the city, we always want to make sure that we do it in good order. And we afford every business an opportunity to compete openly, unless it's of a contract of a certain amount that doesn't have to go out for an open bid. But we need to be very cautious, because we do not want to be perceived as just allowing only certain individual companies or individuals to do certain business with the company. Now, if it's something that we, for consulting, then we need to put it out there for all businesses. Everything should be done in good order. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, I know Mr.
Thank you.
Cuthbert is difficult to hear, but I believe what he's saying is that he is going to retain a consultant.
No,
Private
Listen.
developer.
And that was my question also. And I don't know if everyone is able to see my comment in the chat.
Yes.
Now, if that's something that he's going to assume on his own, and I hate
Yes.
to use that word
It was.
assume, if he's going to pay that on his own without
Yes.
any reimbursement, looking for any reimbursement from the city,
No.
then that's okay. But
Mr. Chairman.
it must be clearly stated that he's not looking to have any type of reimbursement from the city.
Yes, that's what he stated that he would do. So,
Mr. Chairman.
go ahead, Richard.
The consultant that he's talking about is already working for him.
Yes.
And so he's paying for him out of his pocket,
Yeah.
not our pocket.
So, Mr. Williams, what I'm hearing is that you would talk with, I think, Mr. Sadler, but before we go forward, it would come back to the EDA, and we'll have an idea what they're applying for, plus those concerns that were brought up at the last meeting that I think Mr. Jefferson brought some up. We want those addressed also.
Right. A lot of times what comes up with the city with respect to grants are things like matching funds that are required. I don't think that's going to be what is contemplated in Mr. Cuthbert's situation, but I think the EDA needs to know the details before they endorse any particular grant.
Okay. That's what I'm hearing. Anybody got any other questions or concerns?
No, just always want to keep everything out and open, everything within good order. Just want to make sure
Absolutely.
everything is out front and in good order. And there's always a way to do any kind of business, and just make sure that we're transparent with whatever we do.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. So the next steps will be, Mr. Williams will talk with Mr. Sadler, and it's got to come back before the board, the EDA, to review and hear the details. That's comfortable with everybody, so we don't really need to vote on that, I don't think. I mean, we don't have anything to.
There can be no action taken tonight because there's not an action written on the agenda.
Yes, sir. What was that, Jeremy? What did you say?
There could be no action taken tonight because this is merely an update.
Nothing's on the agenda, so we would have to add something if we have something next time.
Right. I'm still not feeling this on the basis that it allows progress when questions that were asked have not been answered. And so I think there should be a hard stop.
I can't answer them if I don't know what they are. Can you explain to me again what answers to which questions you're looking for?
I think last time, Mr. Cuthbert, there were questions about hiring and, involving the community.
Okay, yeah.
We want a specific. It was specific.
On, a performance agreement, and that would address hiring, if that's what you're talking about.
We talking about hiring and the contractors, workers on the project.
Yeah, we've had some had some discussion, I think, with Mr. Williams about that. I'm not sure whether we're at a point where we're ready to present that or not, but yeah, now I know what you're talking about there.
And I seem to recall a presentation that was made to City Council back when you started on this project that included at least some of that information. It was quite some time ago, but I do recall some discussion regarding anticipated job creation, things like that.
Well, okay, find those slides, represent them
Yes.
to the EDA.
Yeah.
It's that easy. It's that easy. But like you said last time we met, you were going to make Petersburg residents a priority. Whereas I'm saying if we're actually helping you underwrite this deal, we're gonna need guarantees.
Yeah. So the expectation, what I'm hearing is that at that presentation, we would want some kind of guarantees of that so the EDA can react to that. And that's
just actually coming up with a plan.
With the plan.
Well,
yeah.
well, what do you think of this if I present a proposed performance agreement, which could be reviewed and modified at the discretion of the EDA, and it would address those employment preferences to be given to residents of the city of Petersburg? Do you think that would be the next step?
I would have to see that in writing myself. I don't know.
We need to, yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
This is Winston Sanders. Excellent points. I think what we're talking about, if I understand Mr. Jefferson, he wants a performance guarantee. And to me, that's the operational side of it. I believe if we did it in two parts, allow a performance guarantee to be submitted to the economic development, and then we can go through and, as Mr. Jefferson states, that we can make sure that priority is provided by our local resources. But I'm thinking in order to allow the project to move forward, maybe it's good to have the prior presentations to be submitted to the new EDA members to allow them to review it. Then from there, any questions that's outstanding, we can address individually, opposed to starting the project all back over again, because there's a lot of information that I think has been disseminated through the presentations that if that was provided, it would have to bring everybody up to the same page. Then we could address it going forward. Anything that's outstanding, any performance guarantee, anything that we need to make sure that Petersburg is going to be whole, we can address it, I think, systematically in that order.
Mm-hmm. Comments? So can we provide copies of that to everyone on the authority? And Mr. Williams, what I hear is that you will talk with Mr. Sadler, but before we go forward, we want to be able to bring up those guarantees that was discussed. And I don't know whether, tell me how to deal with this. How do we, without having another meeting of actually looking at the guarantees and coming up with some suggestions? That makes sense?
Yeah, I think that's the way to go. If there's reservations on the part of the board with regard to the project itself and knowing what it's going to produce, you're going to want to see those first. I think at the same time, at least after that is presented, it perhaps even be in the same meeting. I don't know how comprehensive Mr. Cuthbert will be able to be, but if he's able to satisfy those concerns, then we can also talk about what information Mr. Sadler is able to provide on the grant that's contemplated.
Okay. All right, any other comments or concerns?
Oh, Mr. Williams, I'd like to add, I will contact Jeff Sadler and try to get him to call you as soon as possible. And then perhaps shortly after that, if you had any time in your day, we could get together and talk about where we are. then I think that would help me continue gathering the information that's needed.
Yeah, if you could send me an email, I'll get my paralegal to work with you and Mr. Sadler to schedule it.
Okay, all right.
Okay. All right. Any other comments, concerns?
Mr. Chairman, it's Richard again.
Yes,
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. This is not particularly pertaining to this particular project, but I think the idea that Mr. Cuthbert has presented us with as far as a revolving loan fund is something that we really ought to consider. It would help small businesses in the community if we had one and had a decent amount of money that we could help provide some support to businesses within the community. So regardless of what we decide about the hotel, which I hope will be positive, because I think the grants could address both of these issues and help us get a fund that we could, a revolving loan fund that we could judiciously provide to entrepreneurs or existing businesses that need help or want to expand. That's all I'm going to say.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, so then we'll move forward with that. And the next meeting is February the 18th, so not that far away. All right, let's go to the next issue is the new business list update. Mr. Jeremy Tennant, I think you have that.
Yes, sir, I do. Cynthia, if you could be so kind.
Oh, we're sharing a screen.
Well, Cynthia doesn't want to share with me, so I guess I'll just verbally do this. Basically, the new business list, and you guys have requested the PowerPoint presentation.
Mr. Tennant, you're the host now.
Okay,
Yeah, we can't see anything. Yeah.
Thank you, Mel. Okay. So basically, it's been a while since we've updated this list. We were able to reach out to the Commissioner of Revenue, and the Commissioner of Revenue, excuse me, every month, basically collects the business licenses that are done for that year. And so what you have is a list of 30 businesses that were renewed in the month of November. And in December, there were 7.
I can't see the screen here. How many you said there were? Oh, there were 7 new business license.
I'm sorry, can you see my screen now? I'm sorry.
I can see it. I can't read everything, but I can see. So this is saying there were 30 new business licenses in November.
Yes.
2020. Okay, go ahead.
And in December, there were 7.
Okay.
And because you requested this, I could get into the nooks and crannies of it, but you're going to be receiving an electronic copy of this, so you'll be able to like dissect it as you wish. Once it's sent over to you guys. But just want to give you the update of all the commerce that's occurring in the city in that regard. And I don't know exactly if you have any questions regarding this, or I'm here to answer any questions I may.
Any questions for?
Mr. Chair, this is Winston Sanders. Jeremy, I'm just curious, what percentage improvement is this year over year?
Please succinct your question. I'm sorry, I can't answer. That's an open-ended question.
My question is, if I was to compare the list of 2019 November to November of 2020, what is the percentage increase of new businesses?
Unfortunately, I now understand what your question is, sir. Unfortunately, I cannot answer that because we just started this collaboration, if you will, of getting the list from the Commissioner of Revenue. So this is the first, correct me if I'm wrong, Cynthia, this is our first time actually getting this list from the Commissioner of Revenue. So this is something
staff for getting these lists together. I know that from the time that I came into town here, one of the things that we have struggled with is being able to have inventories of lists similar to this. We're also doing it as it relates to our code violations. We're doing it as it relates to people who are looking to secure or purchase city-owned properties and others. Because one of the things that Jeremy didn't speak to in the great detail is that there's been so much turnover organizationally. A part of the biggest challenge that we've had is coming in and trying to reconstruct something that hopefully lasts no matter who's here, short-term or long-term. Unfortunately, in a lot of instances, also there has not been the coordination between the various departments to pull this kind of information together. So we hope that by starting this process, that on a monthly basis and bringing you these updates, we'll be able to better get at some of the answers to the questions that you just asked. But this is our first shot at being able to keep this in front of you. And as this continues to evolve, we will do everything we can to try to be able to cross-tabulate what we have today versus what was in the past.
Thank you for that update. Yeah, we would like to see this monthly. Any questions for Jeremy on the new business list?
And just to expound on that, Commissioner, I'm the chairman of the room. To follow back up to what Mr. Lyons is saying, this is the first time we started doing this. Henceforth, we see the new business list for November and for December. We haven't been able to dissect which one of these businesses are new or which ones are new that are just renewing their license. So again, we're trying to build a foundation so that way we can keep you all informed. So that way, as you're making your decisions, you know what's happening in the city throughout. So I do apologize for my quick brush over it, but we just wanted to make sure that you guys are given the foundation so that way you guys can know what your decisions are leading to, if you will. Big picture.
Okay. And will you, and maybe because my screen doesn't show it that well, will you be able to tell us by business how many employees?
That's a very good question right there. As of right now, we don't have that data. At least we aren't able to collect that data just yet efficiently and effectively. But that is something ironically that we are working on, because we are trying to figure out the dynamics of how quote unquote employment factors are indicated within the city of Petersburg. But we just don't have that. We don't have it streamlined just yet. It's a work in progress.
Okay, that would be good to know.
Yeah.
Any questions?
I'd like to make a comment.
Mhm.
And this is Norma Williams with Array Business Technology. And I think this is great to have this information, and I commend, sir, I commend you for pulling the data together to show, but we must be careful when we show data because it leads to question. And if we can't show a trend, when we talk in economic development, when I look at November, just as someone just mentioned, well, how did we do compared this year compared to last year?
Mhm.
And now we have Commissioner of Revenue. They keep the records because, of course, the business owners like myself have to renew our licenses, and not to duplicate work, but economic development. What do we need? What do we have too much of? And what should we look at gaining more of and attracting more of? Now, I know the data is there, and it probably was something that was just last minute. Again, I commend you for pulling the report together. So, but the data is there. It will just take the individual within the Commissioner of Revenue office that will be able to keep and give you a copy of their records on what they had for last year. But it is something that, again, when we start showing November 2020, well, up to November 2020, October, September, the previous months. So just be careful when you start showing things, what you're showing, because we're going to want to see trends, and I definitely want to see trends. Okay, well, what happened in October? Were there new businesses? How many did we gain? How many did we lose? What percentage of those, let me see a pie chart. What percentage of those were automotive? What percentage of those were service-based? What percentage of those were technology? What percentage of those were clothing? That type, of thing. So just, if I might, add that as well, because once I see the name, the address, and the owner, then the other thing that I'm looking for on this column heading is what type of business is it? Not too much about the employees, the number of employees, but what type of business is it?
Well, one of
Thank
the
you for
things,
allowing me the
thank thank you for your comments, ma'am. But one of the things that this is ever evolving, and we're very, very respectful of what you're saying. I think if there's one thing that I would hasten to say to a number of individuals is that part of what we try to do here with new people and places is to try to build the infrastructure to the organization to be able to get at some of the kind of questions that you get raised. Unfortunately, you know, that does take a lot of man and woman hours. The Commissioner of Revenue, who does not report directly to us, we work with her collaboratively, so we have very limited in terms of the controls on that whole piece. But this is our first step, and I hope that we can continue to evolve into some of the things that you've asked about. But I'm really, really complimentary of what staff has been able to do in such a short period of time, and I would encourage you all to continue to evolve with us as we move through this process.
Okay. And thank you for this.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next one is the project list for real estate development updates. Jeremy?
Yes, and I'll make this one short and quick and sweet.
Okay.
Basically, there's been a lot of questions about what properties does the city own. We have been very effective in actually placing this on our website. And just a quick little snapshot, if you were to go to the City of Petersburg website, if you go to government, and if you go to departments, look for economic development. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to squeeze everything into this, so it's verbal right now, and I'll do a better job at the next meeting because I apparently have to do this every meeting. And as such, we're going to show you how to map to it. And this, the good thing about this is you don't have to necessarily contact staff if you're interested in the property. Everything is out there in the open, is on interweb, if you will. So with that stated, I highlighted lists of available properties here. If you click on that link right there, anybody clicks on that link, they'll be able to basically go to the hyperlink that's at the bottom of the screen. I don't know if you can see my mouse on the screen, where it says vacancy on real estate property list. There's a breakdown of all the properties, residential, industrial, and commercial, where anybody in the city, outside the state, outside the country, if they're interested in, can basically be able to identify which properties that they may be interested in. And then if they're interested in, see if they can, or vice versa, if you will, see what properties suit their needs, if you will, if it's for anything like commercial needs, if you will. So we just wanted to share this and make it available to everybody, knowledge-wise, if you will, so they can know that this isn't a secret list. It's out there in the open. Anybody can have access to it. And we just want everybody to have access to it because we want to get these properties on the tax rolls. We want to see development on them. And so that's what it's there for.
Okay. Authority members, any questions for Jeremy? And thank you for providing this. At some point, I would love to do a ride through. I know what the current situation is. I have an idea where most of these properties are, but I think it would be very helpful for us to do that.
Yes.
See what's available and what's out there.
And just to give you guys a heads up, we're also trying to look into doing a form where we can actually map these properties as well. What we're doing is we're doing our due diligence of trying to identify which properties, because the city owns a smorgasbord of properties. With that said, there are properties that can be developed. There are some properties that can't be developed because they're in floodplains. There are other properties that unfortunately are deficient in live dimensions, if you will, i.e. they're either too narrow, or they're not long enough, or they're not wide enough, if you will. So we're trying to identify and break out each of these properties so that way we can kind of help the public as they make identifications of what they want to do, because heaven forbid you're interested in the property, you go through the process, because as we fixed the process a few months ago with the property disposition, but it's not completely fixed because we haven't identified what all properties are actually buildable. And what we're trying to do now is condense that list, or basically augment it in a way where we're providing you with the most buildable lots, providing everybody, excuse me, the most buildable lots. So that way, if you come in, if you're trying to, you know what the zoning is, you know if there's any floodplain issues, or actually any lots that are in the floodplain, we're actually denoting those, so that way you don't look that way. So we just, it's a work in progress, and we want to share with you guys what's happening, and hopefully you guys get the word out there that we understand the need of disposing of these properties. We just want to do it in a very structured and strategic way.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Jeremy?
Hey, I have one question. My name is Brandon White, and I just had one question. In the disposition guidelines, under the assessment criteria, it mentions that proposals should begin at the assessed value with possible negotiated deductions at the discretion of the city manager or their designee. What are what's the criteria surrounding those negotiated deductions?
Clay, I'm going to pass this one to you.
Yes, so it's not very specific because it could be a lot of different things. It could be some properties have considerable mold damage and issues.
Okay.
So if it's going to cost a potential developer $5,000, $10,000 to clean out, let's say, mold issues, then we can take that off the asking price. Or if the house, if there's a repair or demolish notice and it's a total tear down, then we want to ask $100,000 for a house if they're going to have to just totally demolish it, right?
Right.
So those kind of things. It could just be blight. It could just be a 50, 60-year-old house that just has been unoccupied and unmaintained for decades, and so they just need to spend more money than they would in a typical renovation. And so we want to start at the assessed value because it could be there's a property where it's just land.
Right.
It's land and it's totally fine. There's no issues, then we would want the full assessed value for it.
What about like the end use for the development of it? Like if it plays into what Petersburg agenda is or what you guys are trying to reach, like if we were to sort of play into that, as far as some like there's like vacant parking lots and there's a lot of just buildings and land that looked we've only scoped out a couple of them, but I guess I could probably connect with somebody offline in regards to this, so I'm not tying up the time. But
To quickly answer that, Bernard, we do have a comprehensive plan, which basically identifies and denotes what exactly we want each parcel to look like. And we're actually in the process of updating that right now, the comprehensive plan. So that will be, it's on our website under the planning tab. If you go to government, if you go to planning and community development, you can look at the comprehensive plan there to kind of help aid you with that question.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right. And just one other thing, I'm sorry, before we get too far, Chairman Rue, excuse me, just want to let everybody know that the PowerPoint presentation is going to be on the website as well. Simply want to let everybody know, so heads up there.
Okay, and that'll be available on the website. Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Yes, Architect Review Board, will they be an agency or a part of the establishing what areas you can develop in, or the standards or criteria for possible future development? And to kind of add on to what the gentleman was asking, does the Architect Review Board also set down guidelines on how things should be? And while we're here, I do have to ask a question.
Well, let me answer your first question first.
Okay, absolutely.
The question is yes. Within their particular zones. Now, the ARB has specific zones within the city. Yes, they will be a part of any redevelopment in those areas. To answer that question quickly, your second question.
The second question is the article on the Petersburg Ramada Inn. A very good article talking about the engineers going in and making a forthcoming decision on that hotel. And the gentleman Poland, and I do apologize if I'm mispronouncing his name, mentioned that there are assessments and enforcements on those they have not taken care of it, possibly $100,000 worth. Are we publishing that information in the newspaper? Sometimes if you put the owner's business out there, it can kind of make them react and take action on things versus having it publicized in the newspaper. And then I have one other question, and that has to do with.
Before you answer that question, please.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that we don't get anything tied, if you will. Mr. Lyons, I know you've been working on it. Can you address that, please, sir?
So we are doing fines and assessment, but your idea of publishing that is not something that we have done. We have done most of that internally and dealing with that through our court system, but we have not made that information public to that degree.
All right, I would make a recommendation that I just like to make that as a recommendation that it does get published. As I mentioned, sometimes when you publish and put in, individuals' information out there for the city to see, everyone to see, they're more quick to take action on it because, of course, if there are any reputable businesses or individuals, they may not want that information to be well known or published. And my last comment, of course, is I consider Sycamore Street sort of a main street. I look at it as a main street, particularly as it applies to economic development, as the foundation of the city. And with that, coming down Sycamore Street, North Sycamore, that is, towards Old Town, some of the hair salons have trash cans on the main street in front of the building. Is there any particular reason why the trash cans are out front every day?
You know, I don't
I'll
have
go
it.
on mute for that.
I don't have an answer to that, but I will double back with staff and we will do everything that we can to get you an answer to that question.
Okay, I thank you so much. And I do have an alibi for one additional. And I've made a comment before and put in a request to have the crossings on Main Street, as I refer to it as, those crosswalks painted. Now, I understand we are in the winter season, but and we could possibly get snow, but is that still something that's expected to take action very soon?
There are some items that they anticipate doing in the spring months. Right now, because it's cold, it takes a lot more and it doesn't hold as well. But there is supposed to be a plan with the street operations unit to deal with some of that in the spring. But if you have specific, you can email me and I will make sure that I get it to the appropriate staff and they can give you the dedicated response.
All right, and one additional alibi, and you know, you say you shouldn't give certain people the open mic, but I do apologize, but I do intend to make this my last comment. I reached out back in October to Mr. Blair with Dominion Energy, and they're going around cutting the tree limbs from off of the power lines. And that was something that I'd reached out to him back in October. And I asked him, he mentioned to me about the difference in the main power line and the secondary lines that run to the signals. They do not touch those. One in particular is I'll give an example, Wells Fargo. They did remove the tree limbs from around that power line right there by Wells Fargo Bank. However, a lot of those branches are extending over into the roadway off on Washington Street. And you know, with the new vision for the city and moving forward, are there any, if we can look at some possibilities of, I know it can be expensive to have trees, limbs cut, but that again, I can email you as well, Mr.
Yes, ma'am.
Lyon.
Send it to me and I promise
certainly
to keep
will.
you on it. I'll share it with staff and we'll come up with a game plan.
All
We'll
right.
keep you in the loop.
Thank you
Okay.
all for the opportunity to address you all
Thank you.
tonight.
Okay, any authority, any other questions?
Mr. Chairman, can I double back to an item that we have on the agenda? I think I've got an answer to some of Mr. Jefferson's question, preliminarily at least, that I had received via email.
Yes.
On his questions regarding the Ramada, just yesterday I had received a draft proposal on behalf of the developer, Mr. Cuthbert, regarding the project, and two of the provisions in that draft proposal, and I had not had an opportunity to read it. I just got it yesterday, but as we were going through the EDA items, I came across, it says the company will hire employees for the operation of the hotel, 60 to be full-time, 40 to be part-time. And then in another paragraph, it says the company, to the fullest extent allowable by controlling law, agrees to include in its agreement with its general contractor terms that require the contractor and subcontractors to make good faith efforts to employ qualified individuals who are and have been 1 year prior to the effective day of the contract residents of the city of Petersburg, Virginia, in sufficient numbers that for all new employees hired to work for the project, no less than 30% of such construction workforce of the contractor, including such workforce, workforce of subcontractors measured in labor hours is comprised of Petersburg residents. To verify compliance with this requirement, the company shall keep written records indicating the number and percentages of Petersburg residents so employed and shall provide copies of such records to the EDA. So I do think that the developer has in their intention to ensure local residents are not only participating in the job force, but as well as in the construction. And hopefully Mr. Cuthbert can elaborate on that a little further at the presentation of the next meeting, but I wanted to touch on that while it's still fresh in everyone's mind.
Can you share that with the authority members so we can
Send that to me.
Yeah, Mr. Cuthbert, that was sent through me by council. Do you have an issue with me distributing that? It's in draft form, if you're still on.
I don't see him on here.
Mr. Root?
Yes, sir.
One thing as well, going back to Mr. Jefferson's question that adds on to what Mr. Williams is talking about. Staff has sent me the link to the presentation that Dr. Cuthbert and his team shared with the full city council. Mr. Jeremy and Ms. Boone will get all of you all members of the EDA a copy of that presentation, if not by the end of the night, by the end of the day tomorrow.
Okay.
And I think that's the presentation I was referencing. I recall seeing something on that presented to council, and that would probably be helpful. But yes, as soon as I can clear that they're okay with me distributing this draft form that they've sent me, I'll send it out to everyone.
That would be helpful so we can actually look at the document. Okay. Any other questions? Well, we're at the adjournment hour. I'm going to give you 30 minutes of your time back. We thank you for your participation. Thank you for lively discussion. And we're certainly going to continue to work forward to move the city ahead.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Just one other issue. The EDA owns that property known as Roper Brothers Lumber, the northernmost portion of the city. The EDA has fee simple ownership of that property. There has been recently a tremendous amount of graffiti painted on the walls of the buildings facing Interstate 95. So when you enter the city of Petersburg and look to the right, you see all this graffiti. And I think it's a blighting influence. I think that we should be good stewards of our property, and that we should respectfully ask those city staff people to please take a look at that to see whether there's a way that we can have the graffiti removed from our buildings.
Mr. Lyons, can y'all take a look at that and let us know?
Yes, sir, I will take a look at that. And I don't know if Jeremy, one additional item that I want you all to know, we'll be coming back to you potentially at one of your future meetings here in February and talk a little bit with you about a request to do some kind of development on the Roper, on the Pocahontas Roper site project. And we're working on some details with South Central Water Wastewater Authority, and they are interested in doing some build out over there, but we want to bring it back to you once we have all the details.
Okay.
Yes, sir. It's actually scheduled for the February meeting. Yes.
Very good. Very good. Thank you for the updates and support and the reports, and thank everybody for attending. And now we'll be adjourned until the next.
Mr. Root, I just have one quick question. Mrs. Williams, or Liz Williams, was on earlier tonight. If she's still on, I'd like her to answer whether or not she would allow Mr. Lyons to share her email address with me. I have some ideas I would like to talk to her about.
Oh, absolutely. I can put my email address in the chat.
That would be great. Thank you.
Not a problem.
Okay. All right, next meeting, February the 18th at 5 p.m. This is adjourned. Thank you all for your participation and contribution and support. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Have a great evening.
Thank you. Thank you.